Have you ever looked at your CV and thought, I did all of that, but who was it all for? Have you chased deadlines, won awards, and met every metric, but feel further from the ideas that first inspired you? Hey, co-authors. In this episode, we're talking about how to protect your academic identity and purpose in a system that all too often rewards output over authenticity. We'll unpack the pressures that push scholars toward unfulfilling productivity and how to resist them without losing your momentum. So let's dive in. One of my favorite hobbies that I like to do is play pickleball. And I got into it maybe about 3 years ago. And to me, someone who grew up being quite nerdy and never really into sports, it was one of those things that as soon as I got into it, I thought, oh man, this is going to be it. Like, this is the thing that I'm going to like doing as my physical activity and the thing that I do to stay in shape as I get older. And then last year, a few students approached me and were like, hey, we're starting a pickleball club on the campus, and we would like for you to be the faculty advisor. Awesome, cool, right? This is the best of both worlds now. It's something that I like doing, and I get to do it now as a part of my actual job. This is like a match made in heaven. And so, I really hit it hard. I'm raising money on behalf of the team. I'm making connections with organizations and businesses in the area. They're going to tournaments and they're having fun. And actually, eventually, we end up going to nationals. And so we load up in a van and drive the 12 hours down to Dallas to compete in the national tournament. And the entire time, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, this is so much fun. I get to work with young people. I get to do something that I'm enthusiastic about and that they're enthusiastic about. And this is just a really cool opportunity. Then comes the end of the year and I have to fill out my faculty activity report. Now, all of a sudden, I have to sit down and think about everything that I've done on behalf of this team, every organization and business that I've talked to, every dollar that I've raised, all of the time that I've spent overseeing practices and driving them to tournaments, everything, so that way I can put it into my activity report and demonstrate to my institution that I am using my time in service to the university and in service to students in ways that have measurable KPIs about my performance. And as I'm filling out all this paperwork, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I did all this stuff this year. So next year, what if I don't have as good of a year? What if I don't raise as much money? What if we don't have a team that's as competitive? What if this happens or that happens? And so then I start to really sort of second guess all of the stuff that I'm filling out. And all of these things are swirling in my mind as I'm writing this prose in my activity report, defending my use of time and really trying to convince the people who are above me that what I'm doing is not just fun. It's not something that I'm doing just for self-gratification. It's not something that I'm doing and shirking my other duties. It's here's all the other stuff that you've always wanted me to do, my teaching and my research and my committee work and service and stuff like that. All of those things, I'm still doing those things. I'm still doing well in them, but I'm also doing this other thing, and it's worthy of being seen as valuable as well. Let me show you how this is valuable to the students and to myself and to the university. And the more that I got into it, the angrier that I got, because I can't just enjoy being with students in something that they enjoy and I enjoy and seeing them be successful and being a part of that success. And instead, I have to do all this work to demonstrate and argue and defend all of these choices to my university. And that got me thinking about how productivity is understood within the university and how the things that we are oftentimes asked to do, even if they're things that we think of as having a lot of impact, something that is an unmitigated good for ourselves or for our students, if it doesn't fit these very neat boxes, that those things are discounted or marginalized. And as a result, it makes us have to work even harder in those things that are traditionally understood as important for the university. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how to preserve your academic identity and your purpose. Because whenever you are able to figure out what your core identity is as an academic and as a researcher and as a teacher, then you're able to deliver that purpose through your writing, through your teaching, through everything else. That's going to be the thing that really differentiates whether you are just surviving in your job or thriving in it. So let's dive in. Are you interested in mastering scholarly writing, developing productivity, and increasing impact, all while staying healthy? then welcome to the Publishing Academic Research Podcast. My name is Dr. Kyle Ruddick, and I'm a full professor and writing coach who's dedicated to making sure you break through whatever is stopping you from reaching your scholarly goals. I meet so many scholars who have creative, innovative, and daring ideas, but can never seem to get those projects from proposals to print. I want you to get your work in the hands of people who will read it and appreciate it. So let's get into this week's big idea. To begin, I have 3 threats to academic identity and purpose that I want to talk about today. But before I get into those 3 things, overall, I just think it's really important to recognize that part of the reason that we have this problem is because we have this institutional and cultural pressure to constantly produce things that have these sort of measurable outputs. If you're teaching, well, then you have these student assessments. If you have research, then you have impact factors. If you have service, like committee work, okay, well, then you're asked to demonstrate how your input on that committee helped create whatever that committee's output was. We're required all the time to document our labor. And while on one hand, I think that there are some times whenever that documentation is benign or even helpful. At the end of the year, I can look at the portfolio of things that I have produced, kind of take a step back and think to myself, man, yeah, I had it going on this year. I had some good things going on, right? So the fact that we have to document stuff doesn't have to necessarily be the worst thing in the world, but it oftentimes is. And the reason for that is because instead of it being a place where we are asked to showcase our achievements and to celebrate those things, instead, the entire process seems to really be wrapped up into this suspicion of, are you doing enough? Are you doing the right things? If you're not doing those things, then you're going to get in trouble. Something bad's going to happen. And so you really are always in this place where you feel like you have to overcompensate, both in the actual labor that you produced over the year, but also just in the way that you write and narrate the things that you did as a way of demonstrating your competence, because it feels like institutionally that this monitoring comes from a place of suspicion and doubt about the value of your work, and as a result, the value of you. I think this is something that everyone struggles with, whatever discipline that you're in, whatever university that you're at. Like, there is a difference between documenting the things that we do and celebrating those things and defending the things that we do and feeling like we are in a culture of suspicion. And so there are 3 ways that I think that we can tell that your academic identity and your purpose is getting attacked and puts you in a place where you feel like you have to defend yourself. The first one is that you find yourself often writing and submitting to journals, not because those journals are necessarily the best fit for your work, but because it has some sort of credibility, whether it's impact factor, rejection rate, whatever it might be, that you know is going to look good in your end of the year assessments or in your tenure file or whatever it might be. This has the unfortunate effect of encouraging us as writers to do research that is less ambitious in scope, that produces statistically significant results or sort of like no duh findings, and just generally researching things that are uncontroversial, because that is going to in turn increase our chances for publication. And the things that we do might and probably aren't even really aligned with the questions that we ask or the things that really interested us and made us want to become academics in the first place. But because we have to engage in this defense mechanism against this culture of surveillance and monitoring, we are in turn sort of encouraged to do work that is untethered from what interests us and who we are. The second indicator that you're having your academic identity and purpose threatened is that you're taking on too many collaboration and side projects. I know that whenever you're a doctoral student or an early career faculty member, you've got all this energy, you've got all these ideas, you want to connect with people, and it really feels like you want to just write all the things. But there's a lot of reasons why this is not a good idea. First and foremost is that you're going to end up saying yes to way too many things. You're going to end up getting behind on your contributions for those projects. You're going to start missing deadline. You're going to feel bad about yourself, and you're going to develop a reputation as being unreliable. So it's just not, you really want to make sure that you're preserving your energy. And we actually talked about this in a previous episode about preserving your energy and making sure that you're using it wisely. But the other reason that you don't want to do this is because it can dilute your actual research agenda. Other people might have really good ideas. Those ideas might be in or around your area, but those are not your ideas in your area. So at the end of the day, it's hard to distinguish what your voice is and what your contribution is absent all of these other projects. And so whenever you go out on the job market or you go out for tenure or promotion or new position or whatever it might be, others might be in a little of a scant of what your actual contribution is and what you bring to the department, what you bring to that university, what you bring to the table, because it doesn't seem like you have a coherent program of research that is yours. The final threat that I oftentimes see with academic identity and purpose is a lot of people equate busyness with success. Man, I remember whenever I very first got into my department and I had senior faculty colleagues who they would ask me, how much did you work this week? Or what did you do this week? And I'd be like, oh, well, I was up here at the campus for 20, 30 hours this week. And then, these other times, probably another 20 hours, 30 hours, I was doing my research. And they're like, oh, well, isn't that nice? I was up at the office for 70 hours this week, and I just can't believe that anyone would do anything less than that. Like, okay, Karen, no, you were not up here for 70 hours. Or if you were, it was because you were napping in your office. So let's just dispense with this idea that somehow being present in your office because you don't want to have to go home is somehow an achievement or somehow noteworthy for you as a worker. But more than that, this idea of comparison and busyness and, well, I'm around and you can see me in my office or you can see me around campus, all of these sort of markers of busyness, those things are empty. They're empty calories, right? They give the appearance of you getting things done, but you're actually not working towards anything because you're never recharging yourself. You're performing busyness so much that you're not actually busy in a way that is conducive to your mental health and thus conducive to you being a good researcher. You end up, after a while, putting on this identity of being the busy person, but no one really knows what it is that you do. No one really can point to your contributions. No one can really say to themselves, oh, this person is known for this, because even though you're around all the time, and every time I turn around, there you are, and over my shoulder, like some villain in a horror movie, we don't really know what it is that you do because you don't really contribute anything other than this performance of busyness. So at this point, we've talked about these different threats that we have to our academic identity and our purpose. And even though we recognize those things as being greater than any one of us individually, right? It's this system that we are in that kind of pressures us and encourages us to act in certain ways. We have to recognize that we do have agency and reclaim our purpose and our identity to make sure that we have long-term sustainability in these institutions. So how do we do that? Well, I got 3 things that we can do to start this process. First off, it's really important that you start to develop or reconnect to your intellectual identity. And what I mean by that is at this point, if you're early career faculty, you need to develop, or if you are a later career faculty member, maybe you need to reconnect with the thing that really got you interested in academia and being a professor and doing research in the first place. Really try to go back and experience that almost childlike wonder that you had whenever you very first conducted research, had an experiment that went well, found something out in an interview or in a survey that you wouldn't have thought was possible, something that really just sparked your imagination and really made you fall in love with this profession and with the idea of publishing research. And once you've done that, once you've really started to think to yourself, what is it that really made me fall in love with this area? Then you can start to evaluate all of the projects that you're doing, all the projects that you want to do, all the projects that you have currently ongoing, and think to yourself, do those align with the thing that got me interested in this in the first place? Does this align with the thing that brought me joy at the beginning of this process? And if it does, great. Keep doing that thing, right? Make that the thing that helps you get up in the morning and slog through all the committee work and slog through all of the other extraneous BS that you have to go through in order to do the thing that you love. Because that's every job. Every job, no matter where you are on this planet, at the end of the day, every job has its extra side helping of BS that is shoveled onto you that keeps you from engaging in the thing that really interested you in the first place. Academics, we oftentimes get into this trap of thinking that it's so important just to be busy and just to be productive that we allow that side to become the main course. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. We want to make sure that the thing that's getting you up in the morning and that's putting a fire in your belly, that's the thing that you get to keep doing and helps you make a difference in the world and helps you produce things that make the world a better place. So that's the first thing, right? Developing or reconnecting that intellectual identity. And then the next thing is thinking about your progress, not in terms of counting, oh, I've published X amount of things, or I've been in this many journals, or I've gotten this many grants, or whatever it might be, but to really start to track your intellectual progress. Think to yourself. So in the last point, I was like, think about where you started. In this point, I want you to think about, where do you want to end up? What is the question, the ultimate question that's animating everything that you do? Because if we think about our research, every research project as one little facet of the diamond, one little component of the larger picture that we are trying to get at. What's the diamond for you? What's the prize? After doing 5, 10, 15, 100 publications, and you look back on those 100 publications, what was the point if not to address this overarching burning question that's really been gnawing at you, nagging at you from the very beginning? For me, for example, I've always been interested in this idea of social norms, of like politeness, and how politeness, as it manifests in organizational contexts, has a dual function of both being a set of norms that are pro-social, help us avoid conflict, help sort of grease the wheels of social interaction. And yet at the same time, those very same ideals can be destructive logics that promote exclusion, hierarchy, and all sorts of negative things. It's the same thing, but within this context, it's got all of these different functions. So to me, every time that I'm researching, whenever I get to do research that I think really is a part of my identity, it's about connecting to this overall question of how do we find something in this social practice that can help us be our best selves, that can help us live in a world that has more peace, more sustainability, more justice. Like, that's the thing that gets me up in the morning. Whatever your thing is, I want you to think about that. So think about, what's that big question, that overarching purpose that's going to help animate you? And then again, think back, how do my projects align to this? How is each one of them a part of the facet of the diamond? Because at the end of my career, I want to hold the diamond. I want to hold the whole thing. I want to give that to other people. And I want my name to be the one that's associated with this diamond. And the only way that you get to do that is by developing this program of research that's larger than just a collection of individual projects, no matter how good the journal or the outlet or the book or whatever it is happens to be. The last thing I would say that you can learn to do, and this might even sound a little self-evident at this point, it is to learn the power of saying no to things. I know it's easier said than done. Everyone's always like, you can just say no to things. You can just say no to things. And that's extremely difficult in a lot of departments. You might have a department chair or a dean that's not supportive of you doing that. You might have colleagues that are kind of jerks to you, right? And then there's just the general pressure of being productive, showing that you're a good team player, and all the things that go into encouraging you to sell yourself short, not protect yourself, and to say yes to things that you don't want to do. But one of the most powerful lessons that you can learn is how to say no to people, even whenever they put pressure on you. And there's a few ways I think that you can go about this. So first off, as we've been talking about in this part of the episode, it's important that you have this very clear sense of self, this very clear sense of what got you into this and where you want to go, and to not spend your time doing anything that does not lie between those 2 points. If it is not serving that purpose, it's not serving you, and you should say no to it. Sometimes that's not just about your research. That can also be about your teaching and your service as well. There are committees, there are classes, there are students, there's advising, there's all sorts of things that can actually help you reach the thing that you want to achieve in your time in academia, but not allowing yourself to be sucked into meaningless committees or politics that are going to end up draining you of your joy. If you are in a department and you are pre-tenure, your department chair, whoever that is, should be shielding you from service as much as possible to ensure that you are able to get a good handle on your teaching and get a good handle on your research. And if your department chair is not doing that, then they're a bad department chair. That is the number one priority, that new faculty are able to establish their careers and move forward because ultimately a new faculty member who is able to really grow into their position and spread their wings, everyone in the university benefits from that. From the students to the administration to the university itself, everyone benefits whenever you're able to shine. So it's a chair's job to make sure that you're able to do that. But let's say that you are in a place where you have a chair that's not a good chair. Then in those cases, it's going to be more important for you to find artful ways to either not be a part of service or to not contribute that much to service. I remember whenever I very first arrived at my university and I was placed on a university curriculum committee for a large curricular overhaul of one of the areas of the university. I didn't know what was going on. I'd just gotten there like a year or two before. I didn't really understand the curriculum. I didn't know how it worked. It was involving a whole bunch of departments that I wasn't a part of. So there was just a lot of stuff that I didn't know. And so I would show up to the meetings because that's what I was required to do. But, oftentimes I might sit off to the side or in the back of the room and grade papers or answer emails or literally anything but that stuff, because that was not a committee that was going to affect me. It wasn't going to really affect my department. It really wasn't going to do any of those things. It was just a place where a whole bunch of senior scholars that were in the university were coming to gripe and whine about how they didn't like the things that were some of the curricular revisions that were being asked of them. Okay, well, cool, but not really worth my time to be a part of. I was there, I listened, and as far as my department knew, I was fulfilling my service obligations. But whatever, right? Same thing with you. Maybe you can get out of those types of obligations. You can point to your busy schedule. You can talk about the things that you've got going on. You can convince your chair or your colleagues that you don't have time for this thing. But if you can't, that doesn't mean that you have to go gangbusters in that committee. Do what is minimally required of you to make sure that that committee functions, to make sure that you know what's going on to the point to where you or your department are not on the chopping block of whatever administrators' ambitions are. And then after that, dust your hands and call it good. So as you're thinking about these solutions, what I really want you to come away with out of all of this is this idea of defining for you what is your goal. Again, that big picture goal that you started with and the ultimate goal that you want to achieve as a professor. And then start thinking backwards. So what are your 10-year marks? What are your 1-year marks? What are the projects that you want to have that lead up to you being able to feel like you've answered this ultimate question that's really been driving you? And map out then, even at the semester level, what is it that you want to accomplish? What projects are you writing that help you answer this big question and that ultimately serve you by igniting your curiosity and keeping your passion alive as you're doing this job? Because I think that if you do that, I think if you really take the time to step back and actually write out that accounting, what you will find is that it then becomes easier for you to say no to things that aren't going to serve that purpose and for you to feel energized and grateful and appreciative every time that you get to do the things that bring you that joy and bring you that happiness and help you reach those goals. So I think that's going to wrap it up for me, folks. As always, I'm interested in the things that you're doing. So feel free to reach out to me, shoot me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know the habits, the tips, tricks, rituals, things that you're doing that can help navigate people trying to find their academic identity and their purpose. I'm always interested in learning the things that you all are doing. I can pass it on to clients. I can pass it on to students. I can also give you a shout out whenever I talk about this again in another episode. If you're having a hard time doing this accounting and you're wondering, how do I even start this process of figuring out where did I start and where do I want to go and mapping out all of the projects and the ideas that I might have that help me get from point A to point B over the time of my career, and how do I navigate it whenever people ask me to do things that I don't want to do, then please reach out to me. As a writing coach, those sorts of things are exactly the types of problems that are going to keep you away from your writing and keep you away from the things that give you joy. And I want to be here to be a resource for you. So many of my clients that I talk to, this is their number one problem, is just trying to figure out what is it that I want out of all this? Because it seems like every time that they turn around, there's another project, another deadline, just something else that seems to suck away their attention and their energy. And they just need someone to be a neutral outside person that might help them navigate these things. So please reach out to me, connect with me. I'm happy to talk about those things with you and make sure that you are able to develop your purpose and your identity and ultimately write the things that you're going to be proud of and that other people are going to want to read, cite, and appreciate. Okay, so thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Hey, co-authors, what's stopping your best ideas from becoming your next big publication? Brilliant research shouldn't die in your drafts folder. Now's the time to bridge the gap between the possible and the published. You can support this podcast by subscribing to it, leaving a positive review, assigning it to your classes, or sharing it with a colleague. Let me know what I can do to make this the best podcast resource for you. And if you'd like to know more about my writing coach services, then you can find my information in the podcast description and set up an appointment. I'll be back next week with another episode. But until then, keep healthy, keep writing, and don't let reviewer 2 get you down.